A story is told in the Talmud about the period after the destruction of the Second Temple, the greatest upheaval in the history of Jewish life, at least until that point. Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues were walking through the ruins of Jerusalem. When they reached Mount Scopus, they tore their garments. When they got to the Temple Mount, they saw a fox emerging from the place that the Holy of Holies had once been. The other rabbis started weeping. Rabbi Akiva started laughing. They said to him, "Why are you laughing?" He said to them, "Why are you crying?" They said, "A place so holy that it is said of it, the stranger that approaches it shall die. And now foxes traverse it. How can we not weep?" He replies, "That is why I laugh. Think of the prophets Uriah and Zechariah. Uriah foretold that Jerusalem would be destroyed. As it is written, therefore, because of you, Zion shall be plowed as a field. And Zechariah foretold that Jerusalem would be rebuilt. As it is written, old men and women shall yet sit in the streets of Jerusalem. As long as Uriah's prophecy had not been fulfilled, I feared that Zechariah's prophecy may not be fulfilled either. But now that Uriah's prophecy has come to pass, it is certain to me that Zechariah's prophecy will be fulfilled." With these words, they replied to him, "Akiva, you have consoled us." How do we make sense after destruction? How do we make sense when our vulnerability has been revealed? And is it possible in the wake of upheaval to find joy and laughter like Rabbi Akiva does? These are the questions we are left with on this day after Yom Kippur. We have managed to walk the winding paths through the depths of who by fire and who by water. We have beat our chests and admitted our wrongdoing. Tradition says that the empty ark of Kol Nidre is supposed to remind us of our own empty coffin waiting for us. We have stood unadorned before the infinite, before the image of our own mortality, and asked to be forgiven, to be given another year of life. And when the gates close, we are left not only with empty bellies, but with hollowed out souls, stripped of all our pretense and defensiveness. And now we stand on the cusp of Sukkot, a time of literal rebuilding. And it is called by our tradition Zaman Simchatenu, the time of our rejoicing. Somehow, in the few short days between the closing of the gates at Ne'ilah and the opening of Sukkot, as we move into our temporary booths, we are supposed to move also from solemnity to joy. How do we make that step? To see the shaky sukkah open to the wind and the rain, and like Akiva with his foxes, laugh. Many of you have heard me speak about Rabbi Alan Liu. Some of you have even walked through his powerful book with me or on your own over the past few years. The book is entitled imaginatively, "This is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared." It is written to be read in line with the High Holy Day season. It begins with Tisha B'Av and concludes 200 or so pages later with his shortest chapter of all, "The Stars Are Shining on My Head," a tribute to the arrival of Sukkot. Tonight I'd like to share with you some of what Rabbi Liu teaches in this chapter in the hopes that it will help us find our joy as we prepare for the arrival of Sukkot. Rabbi Liu writes, "You shall dwell in booths for 7 days," the Torah enjoins us, "so that you will know with every fiber of your being that your ancestors dwelt in booths during their sojourn in the wilderness when they were leaving Egypt. This is a commandment we fulfill not with a gesture or a word, but with our entire body. We sit in the sukkah with our entire body. Only our entire body is capable of knowing what it felt like to leave the burden of Egyptian oppression behind, to let go of it. Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim. The root of this word is sar, narrowness. Egypt was the narrow place. Only the entire body can know what it felt like to be pushed from a place of dire constriction into a wilderness, a spacious, open world. Only the body can know what it felt like to be born. Only the body can know the fullness of joy, and this is a commandment that can only be fulfilled with joy. All the holidays and all their rituals are to be observed with joy, but there is special joy, an extra measure of joy connected to Sukkot. The Torah mentions this requirement 3 times in connection to Sukkot. Or perhaps this special joy is precisely the joy of being stripped naked, the joy of being flush with life, the joy of having nothing between our skin and the wind and the starlight, nothing between us and the world. We've spent the past many weeks stripping ourselves naked, acknowledging our brokenness, allowing ourselves to see what we won't usually look at, embracing the emptiness at the core of our experience, reducing our lives to a series of impulses that rise up, then fall away again. And we have even let the reins of denial slip a little. We have relaxed our fierce determination to ward off death at any cost. We have invited ourselves to entertain the possibility that we might die. On Rosh Hashanah, it is written, we acknowledge who will live and who will die, and by Yom Kippur, we have acknowledged that it may very well be us. So now we sit flush with the world in a house that calls attention to the fact that it gives us no shelter. It is not really a house. It is the interrupted idea of a house, a parody of a house, Lou writes. The sukkah exposes the idea of a house, that the idea of a house is an illusion. The idea of a house is that it gives us security, shelter, haven from the storm, but no house can really offer us this. No building of wood and stone can ever afford us protection from the disorder that is always lurking around us. No shell we put between us and the world can ever really keep us secure from it. And we know this. We never really believed in this illusion. In the sukkah, a house that is open to the world, a house that freely acknowledges that it cannot be the basis of our security, we let go of this need. The illusion of protection falls away, and suddenly we are flush with our life, feeling our life, following our life, doing its dance one step after another. And when we speak of joy here, we are not speaking of fun. Joy is a deep release of the soul, and it includes death and pain. Joy is any feeling fully felt, any experience we give our whole being to. We are conditioned to choose pleasure and to reject pain. But the truth is, any moment of our life fully inhabited, any feeling fully felt, any immersion in the full depth of life can be the source of deep joy. Towards the end of Yizkor yesterday, Cantor Simmons sang that song that always wrecks me. That line from Psalm 126, Ha'azorim b'dima berina yiksoru. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. Debbie Friedman's triumphant melody gets me every time. And yet I have sometimes struggled with the theology of the psalmist's assertions. I want to believe when I am sowing in tears that I will someday reap in joy. But I know many people who never do, whose tears and tragedies stretch from planting time to harvest time and back again to planting time. The psalm seems to be teaching that God has promised a brighter tomorrow, but I know too many people whose lives have ended too abruptly or too painfully to sow, to reap in anything but tears. But Rabbi Lou gives us a different way of understanding this line. Tears do not always lead to joy, but we can look for the seeds of joy that will be watered with our tears. The promise of joyful reaping is not a truism, but a choice. It is not causality, but the offering of possibility. Okay, says Rabbi Lou, you have sown in tears, but now that you have sown, you've tilled the earth and planted fresh seeds of new beginnings, what comes next? Can we see the upheaval not as a destruction, but as an upturning of the soil so that new things can grow? The holiday of spiritual emptying out is over. So we go out and we build the best sukkah we can, and shaky as it may be, it remains a home. And so we close the coffin with the book of life, and we turn towards building. We build a home, even on unstable ground, reminding us that we make the choice to live even in the face of our own death. And in this way, we enact the truth of our lives, that even after tears, we go on planting, sowing the seeds of our own joyful reaping, feeling the fullness of all that life has to offer. May this Sukkot be an invitation to life, to peace, and to joy. May it remind us that we have the power to build, that the choice to turn to joy is always available to us. We need only seize it. And may this joyful season of celebration set the stage for a year of harvesting in new possibilities. Shabbat Shalom and Shana Tova.